Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another Trialogue. I am joined by my co-hosts, Ethan Indigo and Ricardo Calvadio. Welcome, guys. Introduce yourself. Tell them where they can find your work.
Peace on earth, you guys. Peace, everyone. Ethan Indigo Smith, easy to find on the internets, and I appreciate people reaching out to. So on the usual social media, I'm easy to find, and a few books on Amazon. I just dropped an article on Occult Research Institute about Tai Chi for beginners, kind of a way to integrate the Tai Chi practice that is not necessarily super difficult to absorb. A lot of Tai Chi can be difficult to learn. I think that steers people away from it. So I hope people will check that out on Occult Research Institute. And yeah, I appreciate being here with you guys as always.
Thank you. Ricardo, tell them where they can find you. What you've been working on.
Sure. So my name is Ricardo Calvario. You can find me at X at Ricardo Calvario 1, as it is in the screen. I was told to say from the director of public relations of the Institute that we'll have a special show on the 31st at 7 p.m. Eastern, and that will another announcement of the special event where the Institute is going to finally show all the plans that it has for 2026. So it's supposed to be done already, but the website is not ready. So we're waiting for the person that is developing the website to have everything ready for us to do our announcements. As for what I've been working, I just published another, let's call it, paper on about the copper paradox from the old world and the new world. So this time I already established that from the literature that there was not enough ore in the mines of the old world. Then I was asked many questions, and one of them is, how about the paleo environment, and how about the fuel for the processing of that ore? So I've done a first paper relating to that, and the conclusions were quite clear that there wasn't enough fuel for all of the copper that is found in the archaeological record. But people, and rightly so, asked me, all right, but there are lots of different types of wood. There are different types of that produce different types of heat, different types of coal. And so I produced a new paper to support all of the others. And this one is dedicated to each specific location, its type of wood, what type of deforestation happened on those areas. And the results are quite interesting. It shows that it couldn't be a continuous work. It has to be seasonal on most places. And I think the most important thing that I took from this study is that 90% of all of the wood that is deforested from these ancient periods, 90% of it is personal use. It's like building, fire, cooking. So when people are saying, oh yes, but the forests are huge, so it would be more than enough. No, it wouldn't, because 90% of the wood that is taken down is for society use. It's not for industry. So industry literally, and this is in the literature, the industry would literally stop in order for the people's necessities could be sustained through the period. So most of these places that were producing copper, their production was seasonal and not constant. I'm sorry, you are muted, Headless. Sorry.
No, I was pointing to the comment. The comment was about the Somalians, but yeah, keep going. I was going to say the copper from up in the Upper Peninsula is ready to be hammered. So you can pull it out of the ground, start hammering it, and not have to do the whole smelting process because it comes out in chunks. So a lot of the processing is, well, I mean, that's what the old copper cultures up there, the Chalcolithic cultures, brought it out of the ground and just hammered it. They didn't, process it using heat or anything. So the idea that they would use all of this big production in that area doesn't really hold up either, because it's just right there. It's available. You can take it right out of the ground, hammer it, use the tool that you're using, and then,
Yeah, well, the biggest thing that they point to this, and that's where the investigation stops, and that's why this is not taking far, is because the Americas were not found for Columbus, and that's the big stop that causes all these academics don't look at to this. They don't look, although they have looked individually to each specific site. That's why I could evaluate each individual mine. That's why I could evaluate each different type of production of copper in the old world. The literature is all there. What isn't is the correlation of facts, because what these two latest papers show is, and I'm deducing just from analyzing the literature, I'm not creating anything new, I'm just putting stuff together, is that at least 90% of all the copper that was produced in the old world had to be metallic copper, exactly because of what Hadley just said, because the metallic copper requires much less fuel. It's just you have to eat it and pour it into a mold. There's no purification process. There is no roasting. So it's the only way that we can find about 100,000 tons of copper and bronze in the archaeological record, right? Because the mines only produce 1,100. So where did the copper came from, right?
May I ask, Ricardo, forgive my ignorance, but I know they can trace different minerals from different continental sources. Can
Yes.
this be done with copper as well?
Yes,
And
yes.
they just haven't done it.
That is an interesting question, because what they do is they test, and you can find this constantly on literature. They test lead and tin isotopes. They don't test copper isotopes, because if they test copper isotopes, it would produce results. For instance, just a simple fact of purity, the Cu factor. Every time it goes above 99.6% of purity, it cannot come from the old world, because that was the threshold of maximum purity that can be obtained by processing the ore. And it can't be any ore, because if it is sulfidic ores, you can only get like 98.5 to 99.1 at most, right? So when you get results like OTSIS X, right? They say, oh, the tin was analyzed, and the lead was analyzed, and it comes from Tuscany. The lead does,
Right.
the copper doesn't, because it's 99.77% pure, and you can't get that with the mechanisms that they had in prehistory, in this period. It wasn't possible, because one of the things that people think, you put it in the fire and it purifies the copper. No, it doesn't. It reduces it.
Right.
And the more you put it into the fire, the more impurities you're going to put in, because the ash, the coal, everything that is in that environment inside the kiln will contaminate the copper while it is being melted. So the only way to have that is metallic copper. Go ahead, Helle. Sorry.
Finding metallic copper in nature is highly unusual.
Yes.
There are
Very
only
rare.
a very few places in the world that can even happen from. And in the quantities that they had it over in Europe, there was only one place in the world that they could have gotten it from. So it really narrows down all of the results to the metallic copper in North America.
Yes.
Because
Well,
it's the purest.
they
And
are
it's the most plentiful.
from my first paper, the Ancient Minds of the Old World. I had an academic reply to me on Academia Edu. They said, "Have you look at this paper?" And it was a paper speaking about metallic copper found in Ukraine. The thing is, the paper is 20 pages, 22 pages, and 21 pages is political propaganda. It's saying the Russians did this to us. The Russians hid the metallic copper. The Russians have been here studying this and stole it from us. We cannot even see. But I look into it. It is interesting. There are some float copper in the Ukraine, but we don't know about how much of it there is. But it's not explored. It shows signs of prehistoric use, but it was merely local, and they had no. There is no signs of exporting it from that area, because even the extraction was very minor. So whatever it is that is there, that is metallic copper, is practically untouched. So,
I
and
would
this is
say, sorry,
no,
Ricardo.
no, no. Wait, go ask. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to make a bit of a leap of a prognosis that to me it sounds like it suggests it's another stream that suggests they are hiding that there was a group of people who were on a whole other different level than the historical narrative at the time, and they were going back and forth from the Americas with minerals and all kinds of advantages and so forth. I know that's a leap of a prognosis, but it just sounds like it's another the revisionist and the hidden aspects of it just sounds like another point of that idea.
Well, when I start looking into this, the first thing that started to come from the data is the metallic copper. Let's suppose, because this is the threshold that makes all academics change the channel. Let's suppose that the copper did came from the Americas because it's the only place we know it exists in quantities enough. Let's suppose that that's so, right? It could not be imported everywhere. First of all, it's obvious that it was treated as a state secret or a business secret. That's the first thing you notice, because it's not widespread. You find that there are this what I call the distribution hubs. What do I mean from this? You find hubs like South England, where there are large amounts of tin. So it would be a logical place to bring metallic copper and transform the copper into bronze and then distribute it to the old world. Where do you find this more? You find this in St. Anna's Park, where there are those co-eccentric circles, where there are a wall underwater that is, I don't know, 20 miles long, with the entrance to this port, where the port is all circles that most people think it's Atlantis, but it's from this period 4000 to 1000 BC. Um, and then you find other places like Cyprus. And Cyprus is particularly interesting. First of all, because the island itself, the name means copper. Right? It's Kypros, which it translates to copper. And second is an island that the trees were all taken down, but they still were one of the major distributors of copper. Right? Their mines produced. I can't remember. It's a very low number. It's like I don't want to say something because I try to be very precise, but it's very low number, right?
A
And
purity number, right?
no, even in quantity, I can look to say the correct number, but it's a very low number. Let me just, it's faster if I go to the institutes
But
in
is it
academia.
metallic copper?
No, not at all.
It's
Not
not
at
even
all.
metallic copper.
No,
So
no. Or academia institute. It
well, what's
decided to
interesting
give
about
me
Cyprus,
it decided to give me publicity instead of giving my page, which is fantastic. Now I'm there.
what's
Okay.
interesting about Cyprus is that this is one of the cult homes to Aphrodite, right? So this is one of the Aphrodite cult homes, and Aphrodite is very commonly associated with copper, Venus, copper, the Venus metal,
Yeah.
right? It's funny how that seems to always work out. Anytime you've got these sort of places that have these associations, usually they have a god or a goddess that has those associations on the place. So
I'm getting there. Just a second.
tin is associated with Jupiter. So there's a lot of sites for Jupiter up in England. Why couldn't they be doing the processing for tin up there in England as well? So I mean, that's seems to be
So
something.
from
that happens.
Cyprus, we have 3 mines, and those 3 mines produced a maximum. So each one, a maximum I have to do are 15 plus 12, 27 plus 8, 38. Is that it? No, 35. So a maximum of 35. So it's from 5, 9, 11 to 35 tons, okay, in 4,000 years. That's all they produced. And yet they were a massive distributor to the whole part of that area of the Mediterranean, all the way into Asia Minor. In fact, we find the Uluburu ship that had 10 tons of it in one cargo, from a place that produced 32 tons in 3,000 years, right?
Wait,
So
whoa, that is striking. Those numbers are striking. They found a ship that had 10 tons of copper.
10 tons of copper and 1 ton of tin, exactly what's required to
Produced
produce
35,
10 tons of bronze.
and they produced how much over? Wait, you said 4,000 years?
About 32 tons maximum. It could have been much less. I'm just
that
going
makes
to
sense.
the outmost limit.
No, but it's something equivalent to that. That makes absolutely no sense.
What is funny is that they were importing wood. They were making so much money they could import wood into Cyprus to keep producing the bronze. And the only explanation is metallic copper. That's the only way they could still be importing wood and producing the it's not ingots, it's what's the name of it? I can't remember right now. It's a plates that they use, that they put on the boats and also serve as ballast for the boats. So it's very ingenious. It's something that they have a lot of thought to this. It's a very long plan, very well thought of. That
Well,
it's
just to give,
So how much
just to give
copper
context,
is in bronze? Sorry.
it's 90% copper and it's 10% tin.
10% tin. That's what the ship carried. 10 tons of copper, 1 ton of tin. Someone
That's
was
amazing.
going to someone
Wow.
that, in fact, the ship was filled with luxury items. So whoever ordered that ship, either the ship was sunk on purpose because it was reaching a destiny, it was a highly political military target,
Sure.
right?
Speaking of which, I got the clip up here of correcting the problems with the Nolan armor using AI. So what they did is they went back over the preview for the Odyssey coming out in 2026, and they replaced all of the Nolan armor, which is more like Batman silicone stuff, with actual copper that would be from that time period. And I thought it was a pretty good example of a chalcolithic sort of post-chalcolithic culture. So that was a lot of fucking copper, right? A lot. Clearly, what they needed back for that time period. This is just one battle, right? We're just talking about the Trojan War. They were all decked out head to toe in these copper or bronze outfits, and they needed a lot of it. And,
Yes.
I mean, a lot of people don't get the scale of that, but we're talking about, hundreds of warriors clashing on the battlefield like big old trash cans, decked out head to toe in bronze armor.
Yeah. Well, that's what the ship is so curious, because 10 tons of 10 tons of bronze, that would be the final product of that. What the literature says, it would be enough to dress an army. So whoever was ordering for 10 tons of copper and 1 ton of tin, first of all, had the capacity to transform the copper into bronze. That's the first thing. and had a huge capacity to do it because it's 10 tons that we're talking about, right? Which is enormous. You have to understand that the whole old world, the whole of it, including Middle East, the Balkans, North Africa, produced a maximum of 1,100 tons in 3,000 years.
Now, what about to the east, in the sense that China was really interested in bronze in the old ages too? Did they have a source for it? And it might
They have a
it-
source. They have a source for it, and that they trade it internally. They were very if they well,
It
China
was that
is
valuable that it was one of the resources they didn't let out.
I think that at this time, copper was treated as a military secret. It's
Right, sure.
so.
Well,
there
I know they definitely restricted trade on the highly valued resources.
There is a place. There is a place that is called. I have to see the name, but I have the folder open, so it's easier for me. Where is it? Where is it? Like it's.
Well,
I can't remember the name right now, and I'm on the wrong folder for this. But there is a place where they actually found these copper plates that look like skin, a skin stretch. They have 4 points. In fact, I can show. I already had that open. So image file. Let me see if it shows me. Let me show. No, it's better to share the screen. Slides and PDFs. No. So how do I share here? I thought I had
share screen.
Oh, it shares screen. I was complicating things. Window. Here we go. Share. Let me just go to the Uluburum shipwreck. There you go. So this is the ship that was found. This is a place where he was. He came from Cyprus, they say, because they say that that's where the tin came from, not the copper. And these are the ingots. You see how they placed them? So these were stacked one upon the other on the bottom of the ships, and gave the ships the keel that they didn't have. It's what gave them stability. So if these ships were not loaded, they were very unstable, right?
Yeah, because
So-
they'd have to be really high in the water.
Yeah. So they needed to stack all of this. I don't know if I have the image from the museum here, but
And
you can
that
see
explains too. They probably brought wood, right?
you
like
see-
on the travel there.
you see how they place this.
Right.
So
Wow.
this is it serves and this ship is half the size of the ships that would be crossing the Atlantic, half the size. And the thing that I was saying is you had 10 tons of copper. There were 354 oxide copper ingots. That's the name of those plate like
Sure.
copper pieces from a place that was producing 0.06 to 0.28 tons a year.
The
Ooh,
math is not mathing, as they say.
Yeah.
math is not mathing.
So for the whole world, these 10 tons for the whole world for the 3,000 period, I just average. Obviously, there were times that we produce more and times they produce less. But if we just do the average, this ship was equivalent from 32 to 142 years of production from the whole
jeez.
old world.
Now, here's another question. Think about the demand. How much would there be a copper rush? Because this is like a massive amount of wealth, and there are several seafaring cultures that won't want to get their hands on that wealth. So they're trying to sort of monopolize that market of copper because this is the biggest business in the world. This is the arms trading time period of, let me see here. Let me bring us back.
Oh, where are we? Oh, there we are.
So this is the economic situation. If there's a battle anywhere in the world, there's the equivalent of billions and billions of dollars to be made off of that with this trade in copper. So who was the one trading it? Because obviously they weren't getting it from this place. And once you've got the who, you're going to find out the where, because once you know their customs and their patterns, you can find that in the different archaeological sites, you know?
Yeah,
And
but I think in relation, for instance, to you, the most interesting part of all of this is not the copper itself. It's the secret behind it. It's how this was kept all in certain groups. So we know, for instance, there is this individual. His name is Daru, Peter Daru. Peter Daru is a monk from the 13th century, I believe, and he was ordered by his order to go to the Vatican and look for ancient papers related to some martyr or some saint or whatever. But when he was there looking in the archives, he finds this tale of the conquest of Iberia. So we're talking about around 4000 BC. And that there was people there. Sorry, we're talking about after that. This is the time by the before the Romans, so it would be the Celtiberos and all that people, and the monks that were there, because the Christianity was already there, so it couldn't be 2000 BC. So the Christians that were there is these 3 monks and 1 bishop that take on a ship that was going to the Americas on this period. So this is before the 10th century. That I am sure, I don't want to give precise so I don't make this wrong. Before the 10th century. And they went to the Americas. And there are reports of walls of copper, of metallic copper being exposed, right? Because we know that from the Americas, we know that the average is from 300,000 tons to 680,000 tons taken from the ground, which is an enormous amount of copper, right? So imagine that you are now in the New World, right? And you find times moving into these necessities. And there is people with the memory saying, oh, I remember seeing, there is some reports of this material copper, like we should go there and see, right? And so this going back and forward between the old world and the Americas with this metal is something that is very old. It's nothing new, because there are sporadic reports of this happening. It's forgotten, then it's remembered again, and then it's exploited. And the places that we see that were trading it, South England, South Iberia, and Cyprus, they were controlling all of it. The rest, you go for the literature, and they were just producing enough for their internal villages' consumption. There was no export. So there's no export. Where's the copper coming from? Right? Where's this huge amount of copper coming from? We're talking about 100,000 tons that is predicted to be in the archaeological record. 100,000, and this doesn't include, because some people come, oh, it's recycling. Well, no, because recycling reduces the amount of copper. Every time you recycle copper, you lose a little bit of copper, which means that if you account for 30% of recycling, then you have a deficit in your calculations of 30% of copper.
The only other explanation they have is the old copper culture from up in the Great Lakes region, which absolutely not did it ever come close to using that much copper, because like they only had a little bit and then they ran out and they disappeared forever. So what are we talking about? You know, how could they consume that much copper in the short time period that they were said to exist?
Well, the deficit...
Does that make sense either?
The deficit is this. Let me open so I can share it to you.
I think it should be at least noted as tentative. Like that should be listed among the theories that are accepted at this point, because we have no other explanation. Tentatively, we accept the North American copper hypothesis. Easy enough, right?
I have so this is from the Upper Peninsula, a calculation from the literature from 1000 to 1000 BC, okay? Extracted mined copper, a minimum of 100,000 tons. A maximum Well, I put a maximum that is conservative because I found academic literature speaking of 680,000 tons. But I put what most agree there is 500,000 tons. And the only thing we find in the artifacts and calculations of consumption is 5,000. So we have 495,000 tons of copper missing. Where did it go? Right? So when, let me see where I have them put one on top of the other. This is Santana Park that I was talking about.
Wow.
This was found by LiDAR. This is just a coloration of LiDAR. Okay. This is exactly what is there. That there's no creation here. That's exactly what is there. What they found after is, can you see my mouse?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So in here, and you can check, everybody can check this for yourselves. There is a wall coming from here to here underwater with a small opening here. So they constructed this. This was such a secure facility. They constructed a wall with this length to secure this harbor.
You know what that reminds me of? Carthage.
Yeah,
Because Carthage had that closed off harbor.
it's very similar. It's very similar. So
Canaanites.
here is the comparison from the Upper Peninsula and the Old World. The Old World has a minimum of 240 tons for 3,000 years and a maximum of 1,100 tons. And we find a minimum of 10,000 tons to a maximum of 100,000 tons. That is the most accepted number. So it's a deficit, and I have it here somewhere. That's the image that I had before. There it is. The deficit percentage goes from 89 to 99.76% of the copper. We don't know where it came from. So and we don't see any. It came from here, obviously, but it's we need what's going on at this point from the groups that are studying this and that are lucky enough to be amongst this and trying to help as much as I can. What they're doing now, we had done a first. They have done a first isotope testing of copper from the old world. Right. The problem is that copper, although it's a very generous offer from the owner of those artifacts, have no provenance and no provenience. And so the results, although they were positive to this quest that there was old copper, new world copper in the old world, because these pieces are from the old world, this can't be proven. So what's being done now is they went directly to pieces with provenance and provenience, because they require both. And these pieces are already selected. They were already very generously granted by one of the most famous world ancient artifacts dealer. He sells to museums. Is a high figure in this market. And so they secured the pieces that have both provenience and provenance. And these pieces are now going to be tested in the next few months. And if those results show levels of purity higher than 99.6%, there is no doubt that it couldn't come from the old world, because we can't get those results from the old world's wars. They just don't give it. And in fact, I can show you that also. Let me share the screen once more. If I find the button to share this. Oh, there it is. Share the screen, window. The image is not there anymore. I have to go back.
To think about the conspiracy can of worms that they open at that point, it's just, it's wide open. Once you've got early contact with the New World in Europe, what were the governments of Europe doing if they knew about this? And how long did they know?
Why have they been lying about it for so long? Why do they?
Because the copper mines are the Los Angeles. You see, the 3 mines from Cyprus, there weren't that many.
But you said the other mines beyond that, they're not really productive.
No.
Yeah.
So let me show you what I was talking about. Where is it? What is this? It's not. This is
Cyprus?
Cyprus. No, I'm looking for the. Here it is. Obtainable purity. Okay. This is from the literature. From the best ores that don't need roasting, because if it is sulfide ores, you have to make several fires because you need roasting first, and then you smelt. So, but from the carbonate ores, you can obtain from 99.1 to 99.4. I've seen results that go to 99.6, but that's like a miracle, right? It's the utmost that can be obtained from their technology. And if it is sulfide ores, it's only 98.6 to 98.8. So everything that is found, like Otsis X, that is 99.77 pure, obviously it couldn't come from the old world, especially because he's from an early old world. It's 3300 BC.
5,000 years ago.
So let's see, comparative charts. It's too complicated for me to go through here now. But let me just, before I shut up, let me just show you this summary. Oh, here's the first isotopic study. So they are doing this in the most competent isotopic metallic lab in the world, that is in Luleå, Sweden. They are experts in copper, and they can test to 71 different types of isotopes, and it's in parts per million. Okay, it's not, it is sorry, parts per billion. Parts per million is what is being done by testing, like the Otsis X that is here just for reference. They are testing in parts per billion. Now let me just show you.
Well, I've got a question for you. You know about Varna in Bulgaria? The Varna necropolis. This is like one of the very first sites that they have ever used metallurgy at. I wonder what kind of copper they had there. Like if you could find that out, so you could have the comparison, because that's like the earliest point in European history to have copper. Maybe there's good explanation as to how you can get these different purity numbers, because Varna, I think, is a very pivotal place. And if you compare that against it, you've got something to say, hey, look, this is the earliest. This is what we've got in Europe. So let's face it. If we'd have found something there, it would have been at Varna.
Well, that would be in the Balkans area, right? More or less.
Yeah, it's in Bulgaria.
Yeah. So from the Balkans, the purity range is 99 to 99.3%. That's what we find in the. It's primarily malachite and azurite carbonates, which are not bad, but they're not good. But it's not sulfide ore, so that's not bad. So I'm just showing this to show you that this is the total production in tons that the literature tells us that these mines produce. So the Balkans produce a maximum of 66. The United Kingdom, 57 tons. That's all. Ireland, 20 tons. France, 20 tons. Spain, 79 tons. Italy, 45 tons. Switzerland, 2 tons maximum. Cyprus, a maximum of 35 tons. Greece, 11 tons. And you can see the purity levels right here at the right. Egypt, 45 tons. Israel, 40 tons. So where are the 100,000 tons?
We're talking 100,000 tons of copper, and they're producing dozens at a time.
Yeah, it's this sums up to a maximum
over a time. Yeah.
Of 1,100. So 1,100 tons maximum, from 240 tons to a maximum of 1,100 tons. But the
why is this 100,000 tons figure estimate so significant? Who came up with that number?
This is the sum of all that was found and what the literature estimates that is still on the ground or sunk. From what they found, this is what they stipulated was lost. So they have these calculations of percentage of materials lost through time, erosion, burial, from what they found in hoards. Their calculations stipulate around 100,000 tons of copper from this period of 3,000 years. So the number is not mine. It's from the literature.
No, I get it. I'm just wondering if that's the number that they're going to go for. They're going to go and attack that number.
No, the thing is, this is theirs.
I know.
That's why when I
well, it's probably in the ballpark that's irrefutable, right? It's somewhere in there.
Well, I have some hope in academics. For instance, Jeffrey Lewis, if I'm not mistaken, a professor and archaeologist, just messaged me yesterday on X saying that he's going to treat my paper, the last one, the constraints from fuel. He's going to treat it as if it was from one of his students, which is not perfect because he's going to evaluate it for peer review, which means that I will have lots of mistakes in how to write a paper. Right? But I'm concerned is what I'm presenting correct, but not presented the academic way. But is it correct? What are the notes that you have to me on the data that I'm presenting, because I'm following the literature? And what happened with my initial paper, from where the slides came from, the old world, ancient minds of the old world, I had an academic looking at the paper and doing extensive comment on X. He created a blog about the paper where he created 2 pages because I answered to him, and then he created a new page for his blog. And his comments, instead of being about the data, were that I didn't write it in 2 double-spaced lines, that I didn't make an abstract, that I didn't do citations within the text. And I was asking, yes, but how about the material? How about the data? I can't evaluate the data when the paper is not presented correctly. I'm trying to teach you. If you don't want to learn, you don't want to learn. Yeah, but what about the data? We can't look at the data when you have presented it this way. So it shows me that because I'm following the literature, because I use more than 100 papers to do that first initial paper, I compiled more than 100 papers on the subject from people that is peer-reviewed, well-known archaeologists, people of renown. So they can't go against it because the data is from theirs. I'm not on the field discovering any data. I'm just reading the literature and putting
it's
it
like how much do you have to source? Like, you're talking about, general history or the sun rising. Do you need a source for like all of that? Like, it's not, you don't need a source for all of that when it's established. Right?
He's sourcing from other manuals, right? So you're taking from their own archaeological data, and you're just compiling all of their works. So
basically what I do is, in the old times, I would have to print all of these papers or go to a library, print them, read them all, take notes. It would take me years to do this kind of research. What I have to do now is look for the sources. I work with 3 different AIs, one of them trained by me specifically. I give them the papers and ask them to summarize and take me the points. Then I put all of the points in one compiled paper, and then I start asking for summaries of that compilation, and then I write the paper from all of those notes, right? So anyone can go into an AI. There's ones better than others, and they are not consistent all over the time, but you can ask for a summary. Let me know what papers speak about this, and he'll give you a list of all of the papers that speak about that. Then you can pick up those papers, you can download them, you can analyze. Go ahead.
The irony is that if you just took all of his instructions on how to format the paper and then plug those into an AI, it would just do exactly what he asked it to do, and then he could actually get to the data.
Sure. Sure, but it's
That's the only value he brought was that little, paper clip icon on the top of the WordPerfect document.
that's one of the reasons that, for instance, I learned from him because abstracts are not that hard to write. So in these last papers, I placed an abstract, but because I wanted people can actually understand the data that is there. After the abstract, I put it in lay terms what this paper presents. So after the abstract, you'll find it in simple terms what the paper is telling you. So everybody doesn't even need to read the 60 pages of the first or the 30 pages of the second and so on. If you read that section that is 1.5 pages, you'll get all the data that is in the paper in terms that people can absorb. And they don't like it. For some reason, they want it to be extremely complicated and extremely convoluted. But I follow some instructions. I am now numbering my pages because he said the pages are even numbered. And I said, you're right, because if you print the paper and you start messing with the pages, then you don't know where the pages go and it gets a mess. So I'm numbering it. I'm putting the abstract. I'm trying to get the better of both worlds so that everybody can look the paper. And the fact is, although the Institute is not a well-known entity, we are in the 2% most viewed pages of the whole academia.edu. So it means that whatever it is that we are doing, people are looking into it.
Right.
And I don't do that much promotion. The problem is they don't communicate. I see constantly messaged an academic from history read your paper, an anthropologist read your paper, and so on and so forth, but no comments. The only comment I had is from the first paper of the fellow saying on academia, saying, "Oh, have you seen this paper from Ukraine?" Right, and it's an interesting paper, but it's 90% of political discourse. So how can I trust a paper that 90% of its pages are saying bad? I'm not saying they are not right or wrong, but they are criticizing Russia for going there and trying to take their minerals when nothing was extracted. Oh, they identified it and then they hide this information because they didn't want us to know that it was there.
Right. I wonder if a lot of academic papers from the Cold War era were just filled with anti-Russian propaganda.
Maybe.
Well, at that point, it was more anti-Nazi, right? But it was beginning
the Cold War was all about America versus Russia. So I wonder if during
I thought you said around World War II. The whole topic up to thousands of years ago and up to this idea of what's going on in Ukraine really shows the power of what we call in modernity the military industrial complex, but you could have given it another term back in the day, the theological political oligarchy from royal this and that, but it's this power of the secret military technological systems that really, when it comes down to it, they're not fighting amongst each other as much as they are repressing us all, because their secrets are well known amongst themselves, but we have to eke out all these things through isotopic research to really get at their political lies. Ricardo,
here's the question. What if this study actually brings some validity to some ancient land claims in North America?
Exactly. It's a geopolitical.
There's that behind so many things. The haves. Sorry.
Yeah. Right. Look, I now can speak of this because people that are in this for much longer than I have spoken about this, and this was just said yesterday on the Roundtable Chronicles that I'm doing now with Rick Osmond and Vince Barrows and Jason, of course. And Rick Osmond has been in this for 40 years. He's spoken to the tribes. He knows leaders. He's spoken to all sides of this history, right? And although I knew this, I would never say it, but he said it publicly yesterday. So the thing that we have to keep in mind is there is exactly, I don't know who's copied who, but the ancient tribes that are still existing keep a system to this day that is exactly like a Masonic lodge. They have their own lodges and their own secret societies. And we're talking about indigenous people and people that are listening. They say, "Oh, those savages, those savage." No, they were highly evolved, highly complex societies that we just think they were savages because that's what every single chronicle tells us in order to justify the occupation. In fact, to do what's called, this headless, the papal decree that allows to the conquest, it's called destiny something. I can't remember the name.
Manifest Destiny.
Yeah, so they could take the land because they were not Christians and they were savages. They were deprived of culture, so it would be an act of God to take the land. The thing is, there were Christians there because there are many reports of people from Scotland, from Ireland, to go there before and after the Vikings and way before Columbus. There were communities. Even the tribes have records of white people communities that were Christians that tried even to bring Christianity to the tribes. There was
Well,
societies.
even the classic pilgrim story that is, based on truth but full of lies. It presents one of the Indians that welcomes the pilgrims actually speaks English, even
Yes,
though supposedly there was never any contact. But no, there was plenty, and
and as I
Vikings, English, so on and so forth. Please.
sorry, what I was saying is, when I was going to the fact that even the indigenous have these secret organizations that are like lodges, is that this copper secret was highly valuable at that
Yeah.
period in time. So this was highly controlled, highly regulated, and was going only to certain places. And imagine if you have this outmost economical power at that time, you are not going to tell people where you find the copper. You will tell them it's impossible to go across the ocean. It's there is monsters out there. You can't go, right? And they
And we
are
see
going
this,
and coming back constantly.
right? And making a fortune. We see this play out several times throughout history that we're aware of in relation to Greenland and Iceland and resources up there more recently in effect. But there were the certain whales. I forget what are they, I forget what they are, but
The
they had a.
narwhals, the narwhals,
Thank you. Yes, the story of the
the,
narwhals
the
really,
unicorns.
really the whole this whole thing where there was this great resource, and they happened to tell everyone that it was a unicorn. Uh, what
Well,
is it?
the Vikings were making a fortune by
Making a fortune,
spreading,
and it's all secretive, all secretive.
because they were telling these people on the courts of Europe,
Yeah,
we found a land of unicorns and we can bring you the proof. And they were selling this for enormous prices. And they were
yeah,
narwhals. It was narwhal tooth. It's not even a
and
horn, it's a tooth.
all okay, all based on the control of information, right?
Exactly.
And
That's
Just
just
to
and
the
back
they,
you
and
guys up, what was our first intelligence institution in the country? What was the first one?
tell us.
Naval
forget what it
intelligence.
Naval. Okay.
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 Naval intelligence. In all cases, naval intelligence always comes before any other intelligence service because naval intelligence is first
It's a
and
good point.
foremost. You have to control
And
the information coming and going from your country.
And to back that up, what was the first United States war? It was against the Barbary pirates. It was a
Bingo.
war of high seas resource trade.
In Carthage.
And
It was in Carthage. That's the first war that we fought. It was
really,
fucking
I had
Carthage.
an argument. I'm only laughing.
You go to Terceira Island in the Azores. And again, I think it's, if I still have it open, I do. So you find hundreds, if not thousands, of these. Oh, I have to cancel. I have to actually have the open window so I can share. Let me go back and share screen
I just had an
window.
interesting thought. What if the whole Atlantis thing is a way of spreading this idea among people who know about other continents, and they're just writing about it as if it's Atlantis? So, you know,
There we
you've
go.
got
Great point.
people like Francis Bacon. He writes the New Atlantis. He's heavily involved in all of this occult stuff. All of the mystery schools, and he's writing about Atlantis. And the mystery schools have been keeping the whole idea of Atlantis alive for all these years. Maybe it's just always been a reference to their pirating activities, going back and forth to this new continent.
And they call it pirates because they were doing it independently and not following their own organizations. That's why they were pirates.
And the idea that it's sunk into the sea, it's gone. Don't even try to find it.
Yeah.
So my point is, first, in Portugal denies all of these historical facts about the Azores because it would deny them the right of the land. So they have to
Right.
be the ones that found it. So,
There you
but
go.
when you go to Terceira Island, you see this is very different from this, right?
Right.
The thing is, all of these stone anchors, all of them that they measured, have exactly a 14 centimeter hole, no matter what the shape. They all have a hole of 14 centimeters, right? And these are highly similar to the first and second millennium BC anchors from the
Have you seen,
Mediterranean.
have you seen the stone anchors in Florida?
Yes, they're bigger. I
Florida's
think, yeah.
They're massive. They're the
Yeah.
size of huge trucks, and they come from that era, and they just play it off like they're decorations. But no,
Sure.
these are actual, authentic stone anchors from the coast where, supposedly there was no contact. But these things are massive stone anchors. They would have to be huge ships.
I would say that those anchors, and this is highly controversial, those huge anchors are Chinese, because
It
from
could
our
be.
history, the biggest ships were Chinese. The ships that they had, the called the treasure ships, and this is historical, were as big as the biggest tourism ship that you can find today on the ocean. That's how big they were.
And
Enormous
they
things.
say that they stopped doing this practice, stopped really having a navy out of that area because of naval failings. So I wonder if it was secretive stuff going on rather than failings, right?
Not
Oh,
failing,
we
but
stopped having the space program. Yeah, sure you did. We stopped having our naval program. Yeah, sure.
Have you guys heard of the Roman party boats?
yeah, enormous too.
They would build these massive, like, cities on the ocean for just partying. It was amazing.
Well, we created enormous palaces and float them across the water to do a fair,
Right.
right? And those buildings, those palaces, were then taken again, put on barge, and taken to other places where people bought them
Right.
and used them as houses. When we are told that this fair, what's called New York Fair, I can't remember what's the name. But people keep bringing it up. That how did they build this all of these buildings and sumptuous structures just for
World's
a fair?
Yeah,
Sorry,
World's Fair.
the World's
World's
Fair. Yeah, yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
In Chicago and
Yeah.
several other
Chicago and
cities.
San Francisco are often the ones.
I
Right?
just see that those buildings were transported atop barges.
Mm.
So how the hell did they lift a whole building to put it on land at that time? What process were they using? Right? And then they didn't stop there. They could lift the buildings again, put him back on barge because people bought those buildings. At least one of them was just found as a museum somewhere in the United States. It's still standing.
Wow.
I've seen the report about it just a few days ago. That's why I was seeing that the transporting. There's photographs of that transporting. Those, it's and this is from the Library of Congress, so it's not AI. It's actual photographs dated, and they're transporting this huge palace on barges. And you look at the barge; it looks like they tied up this bidons. I don't know how you call it of the oil. Those huge round things.
Right.
This looks like they tied a few of those beneath it and transported over water.
Yeah, that's what. Okay, so they're going to use those big old logs facing up and down because that's going to provide the ballast. But they've got enough of the the weight to keep those things in the water. So a lot of that stuff would pop up without that massive amount of weight. But that's what they say about the pyramids too, that they floated these things down the river using that same method.
Yeah, but the pyramids was blocks, not the whole pyramid. In this house, it's the whole building.
Well, I mean, if you think about the massive weight of that, there's no way that they could have enough of the ballast to keep those things in a shallow river. It's just.
But go to the Library of Congress for those photos, and they're there. That's how they transported the building. I thought that they built the buildings. As my initial descriptions of that fair is that it was constructed as a stage. It was all set. It was all the fronts of the buildings when they actually were complete buildings. And then they start saying, oh, but the buildings were built very fragilely and they didn't last. That's why they are not there. No, they're not there because they were taken again. So how much do we not know? How much of information and technological capability are we?
Well, a lot of what followed the World's Fairs were the world's fires. So you had the big Chicago fire that destroyed most of those buildings, and then you had the big San Francisco fire. And all these cities had these mysterious fires that took out a lot of the old world stuff that, somehow mysteriously were the things targeted by these fires,
But isn't the Chicago fires one of the topics of what is his name? The fellow with the beard that talks about the Younger Dryas, Randall Carson.
Yeah, so, he mentioned it, but so this actually comes from a guy who did a lot of work in Seattle. So the Seattle fire really caught his attention, and how there were whole blocks of seemingly melted bricks in the landscape around that place, and it's like, how could a fire do this?
Yeah,
how did fire actually melt a brick? And he can't explain all of these different anomalies that happened because of this fire. And people were saying that they heard explosions. Yes. What would be blowing up at that time period back in the 1890s?
So Randall describes exactly the same from the Chicago fires. That is, the old cow kicked the lamp. I think it's how they say the fire started.
Right.
A cow kicked a lamp and created a fire. The thing is, apart from all the strange events that preceded, like people getting strange smells, is the fact that even the vaults that were built to sustain from processed metal that withstand enormous temperatures that no fire can melt, they found the vaults melted on the floor. They melted, the fire was hot enough to melt processed high quality metal. Steel. Okay. It melted.
Cow fires
as water, a poodle. The vault was a poodle of metal on the floor. So what kind of
cow fires cannot melt steel vaults. Okay.
No. So whatever is that caused this fire, he attributes it to astrobleeds. So to impacts in nearby areas, and that the Earth itself was reacting to that by releasing gas. It names the name of the gas that I can't reply. So the public, the reports of witnesses before the fire speak of fiery coming from the ground, from the sky and from the ground, because the gas was all ignited by the heat of this falling object, and everything was involved like a napalm bomb or something of sorts, right? That caused that fire, and it was fueled by the gas of the impactor. So cow fires can melt steel vaults. So whatever caused these high temperatures, they just don't explain it, and they don't look at for it because they don't want to find the answers, obviously.
Clearly.
So what do you guys have for us today?
Ethan.
I'll go. Well, I was gonna say, you remarked earlier, Ricardo, that you remain hopeful, and you continued that science would, address the facts and be critical. And I was gonna say Orwell. I'm paraphrasing, but he says all writers are hopeful, essentially, because you have to be somewhat hopeful to take on writing. He also said that all writers are narcissistic, a little bit, right? Because we like to have our writing get read, and we think that we have something to say. So I'm being critical of myself. I'm trying to be funny. So with that said, I have some writing to share. And let's see if I can.
I would just say that every kind of artistic creation, be it whatever it is it's a bit narcissistic, right?
Sure.
So
Sure.
Headless would not put his painting right in the middle behind him, right? So I'm not calling you a narcissistic. I'm just saying that if you
got more canvases, so I'm even more narcissistic too.
So, but it doesn't have to be for
no. I think Orwell
Dali.
Was joking
it was Dali. I don't know what's the guy it's Dali. He woke up and said, "What is the great Dali going to create today?" This is one of his phrases, right? Just by waking up, right? So we are not at that point, right? We're just having fun with it, and it's like sharing information. Now, I wrote this. Now you read it and tell me what you have to add or to criticize, and this is like a debate, right?
And so development.
And it's narcissistic from the point of view that if I'm talking to you, I'm expecting that you not only address what I'm saying, but you reply and contribute something to the conversation. I think that's the narcissistic point of it.
Merely that, yeah, totally. I was just trying to be funny and make fun of us. But yeah, the fact that artists take the time to create is really demonstrative of hopefulness and other really positive attributes, right? I don't think it was last week, but 2 weeks ago, I brought up the distortion of the symbology with the chakra system and the Legibitica flag. And now I want to talk about more of how to use this or how it's used, or relationship of the chakra system that's actually a positive manifestation. And I think I can be pretty brief here. And the article I wrote, actually, what I wrote here is very simple and kind of just shares some ideas. Did that go through?
Sure, it's only the usual 700 pages. So go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's exactly. My point is, it's really, as we see here, there's just some quotes. It's kind of a visual tool, a lot of visual tools assimilated to demonstrate an idea that I do write thoroughly about in my book, The Tao of Thoth. Honk, honk, beep, beep, nudge, nudge. Nudge. So
is he a goer? Is he a goer?
What?
Is she a goer? Is she a goer?
Yeah.
Is she into sports photography?
So I talked about the relationship with the chakra system as a layering of conceptuality, right? Like, not necessarily looking for where is the chakra, right? More of a way to consider even situations and things and so forth. and I don't think it's considered often enough, the relationship with the chakra system, and well, further, the Om symbol, which is the oldest symbol on the planet, which I obsessed with, of course, because it's really based on four, and more specifically, the duality of polarity, if you will. Entertain me in saying that, but it's beyond that. But it's really based on these four aspects of consciousness, with three others in between each. And there is your seven, which is kind of a fundamental meditation tool, directly as a meditation practice, and also as a consideration of the meditation process too. But I don't think it's often related to the Kybalion, which it is in effect, if we consider these systems as related to a pantheon of conceptualization, there's a little bit of difference in the way the Kybalion is formed, but it's very much in the same formation of the chakra system, not necessarily to give the to say that the Kybalion, which is a modern creation, and assimilation of probably a lot of different wisdom from different places and times, not to say that it's related to ancient Egypt and there's the chakra system in ancient Egypt. I'm not saying that. I'm saying just more as a consideration of the totality of using these ideas as principles. And me being obsessed with four, I'm also obsessed with four pair, which is the eight, and so forth. And this just describes the eight a bit in my website, Geometry of Energy. You can find it if you want to look at it. And
tell me, is there a consensus? Is there a consensus on the number of chakras through all the traditions, or they vary?
Well, no.
You're fading, Ethan.
But consider this: the Indus Valley area. So at one point there was more predominantly 5 chakras. Actually, these are the main chakras. In modern consideration, you might consider that there are 108 or 112 chakras, although there could be infinite even, you could deduce, but there are the main considerations of energy points and energy cycles, and then there are innumerable beyond that. I think it would be the proper answer.
Have ever been scientifically addressed, or is just
no? I think it's really a philosophical tool and a way that can we can use to affect and understand our physical body even. But I think it's a more of a philosophical tool rather than here are the chakra points and I found the main 7. And here's my presentation. I don't think it's.
If I could jump in on that. So I've noticed doing aura readings on people and doing Reiki that the chakra points kind of form to what your conception of them are. So it's kind of strange.
That's a great build. It's a great build. I couldn't disagree with that.
Right. So it's kind of like there's
things.
Right. When you've got this vague energy that's sort of outside of your body, it interacts with your imagination in pretty powerful ways. So the more you think of yourself as sick, you get sick, and it's sort of like a biofeedback loop between the aura and
self-actuation. So
I think people's auras at large read that way too. If they're more heart-centered, they have a green tint. If they're more X, Y, and Z. You know, I think it reflects in how they are. You know, the mind rules, right? And in fact, going back to the Kybalion, it all starts with mentalism, which you know, they can't really argue as far as that goes. And to your point, how this they're in the Chinese system of physio psychic body and energy systems, there are the 12 meridians, and acupuncturists will use these lines of energy that have points and nodules that we can actually really demonstrate it by pressure points, right? And these pressure points can be affected through massage as well, not just and healing, not just martially, but the 12 meridians are affected with acupuncture, often in a systematic way, but often in a way that the practitioner utilizes that is totally individuated, and their conceptualization of things, like you're saying, like it's kind of how people reflect how they are, that's how it is. And same thing with this healing modality, how people think it works, that's how it works.
Yeah, because you see, for instance, this is Asian diagrams. I think they're mostly Chinese. For instance, of a person's foot, and on the foot are lots of organs or points that represent organs in the body, and so you press those points to affect those organs. For instance, right?
Yeah,
So,
this is the microcosm reflecting the
yeah,
macrocosm. The same thing occurs in Chinese cosmology and understanding. Same thing occurs with the hand as well as the bottom of the foot, the sole of the foot, and the face. There are organ system representations in each of those three
yeah. So,
places.
so my question is, considering our technological capabilities today, isn't anyone looking at it scientifically? Is some
Oh,
relation?
this does have relationships. I think that these do have relationships that can be scientifically validated. I'm certain that they have relationships that we can anecdotally validate
Rupert
personally.
Sheldrake. Rupert Sheldrake's work on the field. What kind of field is that?
A morphogenetic field.
Morphogenetic field. There you go. That's the same idea.
Yeah, but that is a representation of your real self. Instead of being your brain, you are that morphogenetic field. In fact, he defends somehow, and this is highly controversial, although he guarantees us that it's highly scientific too, is that it's not the DNA that determines your shape. It's your morphogenetic field. And your morphogenetic field adapts to where you are born. So you reflect something of your mother, and somehow you reflect something of your father, or go back, because it's links from energy, it's links from frequency and vibration that determines that, right? So he has this bet with this ADN's researcher. He says that tells him in a few years we'll be able to know exactly how to construct a human being. We will determine exactly what the EDN information is, and we'll be able to do that. And he has this bet of a Porto wine that is from Portugal, uh, uh, bottle of wine that is their bet, and there many years have passed, and the fellows still haven't gone, because the only thing they could determine so far is, I think, the Drago. Uh, Dragophila melanogaster. There is the fruit fly that they use in labs. That's the only thing that, and even so, they don't have the full DNA unraveled from that, because, as we know, we consider 90% of it garbage. And while we consider 90% of the DNA garbage, we're just saying we don't know what it means, we don't know what it contains. So let's call it garbage. Let's say that only this 10% matter, right? And I think we attribute that to every single thing that is studied, like the cosmos. We negate vacuum, and then we have Nassim Haramein telling us that there is as much energy in one cubic centimeter of space vacuum as in the whole universe. And he presents justification for that in the same language that physics and astrophysics explain their own theory. So it has to be correct, otherwise everybody's wrong. Either everybody's wrong, or some people are not seeing the whole picture, right? So that's why I asked you if there has been a scientific investigation into chakras or these pressure points, because I know that although they are rejected, the military use it. These pressure points I use in martial arts, and we know that they function, right? Like for instance, the one that I appreciate is this pressure point here, that you can create enormous amounts of pain by pressuring this point, right? With
there is the idea that the chakras are actually in their physical construct, not organs, but what releases the essences, different. There's glands that the chakras are representative of glands. So you can say that they do have physical relationships, but I think more so, just like mind rules first, it's more of a lesson of understanding rather than a specific place. And again, you want your chakras to be clear. When they are pronounced, there's usually a problem, right? When someone has a really pronounced aura, there's probably something going on there that's stuck. When it's really subtle, then it's healthy. Headless, maybe, I don't know.
Well, yeah. What you're trying to achieve is a sort of altered state of consciousness when you're, doing energy work on other people, right? So you're trying to feel certain shifts in how the air is moving around your hands. That's one of the first things. And if you've ever known a Reiki healer before, you know that their hands get incredibly warm when they're doing Reiki. So you've got the two senses sort of working in combination to try and figure out how the energy systems are working in the body. So it's kind of like dowsing with your hands, right? And so as you're feeling that energy, you're going to be feeling where there's displacement or places that don't feel right. Another
but you find the same thing in churches. I can't remember now what kind exactly of Christianity this is done in there, but these people hold hands, right? And they just faint by what is called the unsound, right? And that energy is transmitted by hand because you can see people are falling like domino because the current is going through, right? And then there are some people that not only are immune to that, they have the capability to do that to everybody that is connected to them, right? And those are typically taken apart because they don't want to show that somebody can do that beyond the pastor that is giving the ceremony.
It's just good old-fashioned stage hypnosis. I mean, any stage hypnotist can get a whole crowd of people to pass out. So I think there's a lot of energy that is entwined between people, through social expectations and a lot of other different factors, including body language, that you can actually produce those kind of results if you've got a heightened state of divine madness. That's what the Greeks.
Well, I would consider that a power that is always there, stronger in some than others, and that it's used in the same way that the priest knew that the sun was not going to be eaten by the moon. So who holds the knowledge of how to do this holds the power. So, and I'm separating completely from Christianity. I'm just saying that some churches use that kind of energy of power for their own benefit.
Well, it's the same formula every time. It's disassociation through visualization, right? So as these pastors or priests or whoever are walking these parishioners down this path towards sort of a hypnotic goal, having them close their eyes, open their eyes, do certain positions. These are all adding to the effectiveness of his mind control message, you know?
Sure.
It's
But
always
this doesn't happen just on the stage. This happens with the people that are on the chairs, right? So
right.
that even waves. So I would find very hard to hypnotize everybody at the same time. I think there is actually some kind of current going on. There is some kind of energy flowing. If it
That's where
is
the morphogenic field idea comes in, because you can see it's organizing
a
people's
frequency,
brains.
into a frequency, that I can accept perfectly, yes. And it's a
It's like
matter of belief.
synchronizing balls, right? Yeah, but they're all feeling the same emotions too.
Exactly.
So there's a energetic component. So it's okay. So imagine all of these people as swinging, I guess you would say like metronomes, right? And those metronomes are on top of a balancing surface. So now all of the metronomes get in tune with one another just by being around each other in that sort of unstable environment. And once you've got enough of those metronomes going at the same time, that's the kind of synchronization that you're talking about from these crowds and the energy that moves through them.
Sure.
All it takes is just a little bit. Everybody's feeling shocked and all the rest of these emotions.
One of the things most people don't know is on these churches, there is a back room where there are 12 to 20 people praying quite loudly in a in a kind of trance. They are all linked together by hands, and they are conducting the energy for the ceremony. So even if you take beliefs like Christianity or whatever you want to call it behind it, there is this pagan, almost shamanic use of energy and power that's being associated to the ceremony itself. So,
speaking of which, this brings up my topic, which is the pygmies and the dream giants. I've talked about it a few times on this show before, but there's this pygmy culture that dreams of their ancestor giants, and the dreams that they get cause them to actually lead the society. So it's like they're channeling these gods, these dream giants, to the people. And one of the instances here, the anthropologist starts having dreams of the dream giants herself, and then talking to the pygmies as if she's now the oracle of the dream giants. So somehow it's contagious.
So, but on the tribe, she was on the tribe, subject to the. So she's subject to the same energies, to the same thing that everybody else is there. Okay.
Exactly. And she's an anthropologist. She's doing an ethnography on these pygmies. So she's just there to study them.
And is still accepted now that she entered the woo-woo?
It changed the whole conception of stuff. So I have
does she consider that it is the earth energy or that it is the conscious energy of the group? She doesn't reflect on either or.
I don't know. I'm going to have to get into it and read that part, but I just got it the other day. Well, actually, just today.
So the gods of the pygmies are giants.
Right. Bingo.
That's interesting.
But what wouldn't be giant? I mean, look.
Right. That's true too.
So this is in the Philippines. It says, okay, the skin on his face quivered, and I could see that the muscles beneath were slowly transforming his expression. A murmur ran through the assembled negritos, and then all were silent as Agong began to talk. The whole group looked as though it were ready to take off into the jungle. Perspiration glistened on Juan's forehead, and his voice trembled as he explained to me that it was not Agong speaking, but rather the ghost of his dead father. And all the people recognized the voices and were terrified. Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, Juan gasped. They're all saying that Agong's face has become his father's mask. Tell me, what is the ghost saying? I asked with vexation, annoyed by Juan's violent trembling and the chittering of his teeth, his own appearance more dead than alive. Would I have known to induce with no confidence in the negritos? We must talk to him and ask him what he wants. I said to Juan, trying to appear calm, don't be afraid. The ghost can't hurt you, but it may cause us much trouble. If you don't keep it under control, speak up and ask him what he wants. Despite my show of assurance, I felt shivers going up and down my spine, the transforming in Agong's voice and face. So
She was seeing
yeah, she was seeing it.
it.
The dude is transforming in front of her.
And the
Right.
mask of my father. So they are a mask creation tribe.
Well, yeah, they have ancestor venerations too. So this is a really significant event. Somehow the father is coming through, and it's a terrifying thing.
He can't cause you physical harm, but can create huge problems to the tribe. How does that work?
I don't know, dude. I think it has to do with their ritual engagement with the ghost, right? So once it appears, there are certain steps that they have to follow to make sure that the ghost is put back, in order, and that they have harmony in the universe. That's usually one of the themes when it comes to shamanic exorcisms. They try to put harmony back to the universe and not just, trying to kill the ghosts.
It's only slightly related, but I saw a post in the last 2 days that someone was saying, and very, very brightly, let's it has this image of drones creating a face in the sky, right? Yes. Drones creating a face in the sky, and he's saying, let's create this on top of an isolated tribe and become their god. Right. And I find it extraordinarily interesting and funny, because that's exactly what would happen. If you don't understand the technology, you consider it divine. First of all, it's God's, right? It's the cargo codes shows us that clearly. Even after telling them and they knowing that what a plane is, they still create the plane every single year.
Hang on. Well, I know about that. So the cargo cults today that still exist, they believe they are archetypal cargo cults. So they've actually evolved this into a cosmology where now John Frum is sort of at the center of the universe, and all of these prizes have to do with spiritual gifts that you could achieve by going up the ladder towards John Frum.
Sure.
So it's now an archetypal religion within 3 generations. What does that tell you about our religions?
Well, and it also, from the other side of the psyche, it says so much about us in the sense that that person and we largely have the inclination to become as gods, right? I want them to recognize me. I'm going to trick them with my technology, right? Because it's the only way.
That's the minority. That's a minority of people, because most of people have an inclination to believe in gods, not to create them. You see where I'm going? So there's a few that have this vision to use this kind of belief of the masses in order to benefit themselves, because they know there is a human inclination to believe.
The wolf and the sheep of human consciousness.
Yes.
One more note on that. So most of the John Frum cult just converted over to Christianity after they realized that their John Frum cult was based in Christianity. So the real cargo cultists joined the religion of the guy who
of the gods. The God's religion. They followed their God's religion. It's
there you
go. But it is as simple as that. So we can be the same as that untouched tribe in the middle of the Amazons. It's just what changes is the level of technology that had to be used in order to make us believe the same that they would believe by seeing a face created by drones in the sky.
Right. A recent news story that is similar to this inclination of becoming gods with drones or something. 2 guys had the idea that they were going to take over an island with an army of homeless people they were going to raise, an island off of Jamaica. they were going to take over it, and we can deduce become as gods or as demons, really.
Would that be the weirdest thing that goes on out on these isolated islands? I don't even think so.
I'm sure it's happened so many times in history, right? I mean, if someone's having that inclination in 2025, two dudes that they wanted to round up a homeless man army to take over anywhere is just insane, and goes to that wolfish inclination to be as gods with drones.
Well, the
Back
week
to the World's Fair. Remember the World's Fair in New York where they had all of those Cabbage Patch babies? They had babies in incubators all over the place. Where'd they get these babies from? Maybe it comes from the islands because they had an army of homeless people that were making babies.
Well, in Cloud Atlas book, you find this phrase. There is, the weak are meat and the strong do eat. So,
yikes.
You never read Cloud Atlas?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, it's very good.
Because
he goes Cloud Atlas. It's a book, so it's Michael Davis.
I saw the movie.
Yeah, but the book is even even better. The movie is not bad, but the book is excellent because the writer has this talent that very few people have. That is, he's covering different stories in different periods of time, but he doesn't write them the same way. He uses the correct language for each period in time and writes in accordance to that. So it's like actually he lived on those times and knows exactly how to use language in accordance to those times. What is old, what is modern, what is future. The way he writes, he's able to to be as prolific writing from the 1600s as he is on the present and as he is predicting what would be in the future. Because these stories are all cool. The book is not a following story. You jump from periods of time and to find out that these people were somehow all related. They are just reincarnations of each other, living one story through multiple periods of time. So I do recommend. There is a very good audiobook version of the book. So if people don't have the time to read, just listen to it. It's very good.
That
very
format
good.
Of this presentation, as you describe it, reminds me of some of the best writing advice. Since I was talking about writing earlier. Don't tell me, show me. In the writing,
exactly.
Right?
Yeah. And although I'm a very, probably that's why I never finished my novel. I can write data, but I struggle to dialogue, for instance. I can write extensive description of the scene, but I'm more like a script writer than a novel writer because I can't write the dialogues. I struggle with the dialogues.
What I find with dialogue is I use it as a way to tell the setting. Use it as a way to describe what's going on is sometimes can be a helpful kind of.
Well, if all of the characters of your history, of your story, are all in the same level of knowledge and education, it's easy because you only have one line to follow. But when you have people on your story that some are gods, some are wise men, some are simpletons, some are specialized in this field or that, and so on, it boggles my mind because I have to write them all differently and I have to make them sound differently. Just by reading the phrase, you will know if this guy is a peasant, it is a god, it's a wise man, it is a guardian, whatever he is, right? So, and because I cross also long periods of time, so the three books goes right from the beginning of history that we know, so around 6000 BC, more or less, in terms of Babylonians, to the present. So he crosses all of these periods of time with all of these different figures and different historical moments and different civilizations and cultures, and that complicates the process so much that I've been doing it for 30 years and I'm still not satisfied.
Have you ever tried to write a screenplay, which would be the hardest thing, I imagine, for you? Right? Because it's like the description is meant to be so brief and dull, right? Of the setting and so on. And
Yes,
then it's
I,
all
I,
dialogue.
I,
So hard.
I did the opposite. I have a complete description from beginning to end,
No,
including
I get it. I
characters,
get it.
cultures, languages, the
Consider
environment, the buildings. I have all of
trying
that.
consider trying writing in a screenplay format for its difficulty in developing dialogue, because it's so hard. You're right. Dialogue is so hard. So hard.
It's what I don't have. It's the dialogue, and I have to have tons of it because there's most of it. It's shown instead of this of tell. So it's very complicated, and that's the problem that in history, because what I'm trying to do is write history. Like Tolkien says, factual or fictional. What I like is history instead of allegory or whatever. So I'm trying to write it as if it is history, and that even complicates further things because I have to follow a rule constantly from beginning to end.
A lot
So
of research. A lot of
what I have,
research.
what I have is a complete description of it without the dialogues. I know exactly who it is, how he speaks, how he dresses, what time is it. I have all of that. I just can't give each one a voice in order to live
AI.
seamlessly. Yeah,
Plug it
probably,
in.
probably, but it's so much at the same time. I already took 30 years, so I want to do it when I have the time to do it properly. Because I took the trouble to create the languages, the different animals, the different worlds, all of those descriptions, the technology used, which is not extensive because I didn't want it overcomplicated. So
Yeah, you overcomplicated it.
too much. It's just too much, right? So, and I wrote it all by hand. So
Wow.
what I have my problem now, and I can show you exactly. So this is one of those books that I wrote all by hand, and I can't read it anymore because it's pencil, right? And so my eyes don't allow me to read what is written in there. And so it will take time because I will have to enlarge all of this and take all the data back. So I still have it just to not forget it, but it's a work.
Well, I bet to what Headless said, I bet you could scan it, have AI read it easier.
With my letters, I'm not sure I can read it, but I can try.
I bet they deciphered those bound scrolls, I bet it can decipher your, chicken scratch.
Well, it's something that I would like to do, but it will take me probably a years in order to achieve
Well,
it.
there's the idea of writers being hopeful. Man, technology has made it so easy, but that is an example of like just the transcribing of our own writing from one template to another is daunting. I
Sure.
mean, writing is a serious mission. So props to you.
No, basically what I'm trying to do is give a view of why we are as we are and why society it is as it is today and has been through different periods of time. Who controls it? Why controls it? What are the different factions that war with one another? Right. So it's simple. I just start at the big band and I stop now. So
Sounds easy.
but
Sounds easy.
if people want to have a glimpse, there is this on my YouTube channel. There is this video that is called the Helix Tree, and that's the cosmology behind the whole tale. So that is a poem that I wrote right at the beginning. It's, I don't know, 9 minutes or something, and it's like the whole cosmology until the point where the history that I'm writing starts. So it's there for if anyone wants to see it. Headless, you said you're going to show us paintings.
Oh no! I said I got more.
Oh, more canvas. Okay.
I gotta complete more paintings though. I got them.
You got
They're
a couple
coming.
ideas?
Yeah, I got one. I was gonna make it about sort of like a torus inside of like the field of the head. And I'm basically trying to paint out the noose of Zeus, that sort of concept.
Hmm. And do you show
Oh,
this?
cool.
You
The Tibetans. Please, Ricardo.
No, go on. I can say it after. No worries.
I was just going to say there is a Tibetan meditation process and initiation where those who have done the process end up developing a literal, you might call it a torus hole in their head. And to the point that the teacher monk, the master, finds this thing and is able to just prick a feather into their heads.
Oh, that's
So it's I forget the name of the meditation initiation, but if you look it up with those facts, I forget if the feather is of a condor or what the animal is, but after this process, when they are successful and done, and they're usually quite young students at that point. It's one of the first big accomplishments of the Tibetan Buddhists that are still practicing up there. And they get a feather in their head. Your story of the Taurus coming out of the noose is just like it sounds.
Do you see any relation between that and the prehistory's trepidation skulls that we find that have the holes?
No, this is I believe it's known as a temporary effect. So some of the meditation processes, as I understand it, have certain thoughts and things that will come up, and your master will ask you, okay, you've been meditating and what happened? And some things that happened are in line with the tradition, and that means that they did it and came to the proper realization. And I think this very subtle, I don't want to say it's a hole in their head. It's a very subtle, almost like so much energy has been going through them that they develop a little indentation. Of course, there's no hole in their skull or their scalp, but these guys are all monks, so they're shaved bald, and you can clearly see that it's not the teacher monk is not indenting their skin with this feather. He's setting it in what is a prior indentation. And again, I think this is just an effect of what they've been doing that is temporary, I believe, as the story goes. But it just reminds me of the vortex and torus field of our mind coming out of there. And to that point, there's this in and out kind of registration of receiving and transmitting, whether it's through a field or as we were talking about, the transmission of magic and the convincing of people of one thing or another. There's kind of like a pulsing of a torus field, like your painting may be, right? That's kind of what's happening.
Right. Well, if you think about the white hole and the black hole idea, and you think about the torus field and what's around our planet, and we've got the North Pole, which is like, one side is spitting out ions, the other one is sucking them in. This is the North and the South Pole. So you've got a flow sort of coming in and out through the planet at the same time, kind of like what a black hole would do, except maybe the torus is a different dimensional object than normal three-dimensional object. So
yeah, but that's
like a tesseract.
Yeah, but that's intimately related with our perception of it, because we can't perceive it, because it's spread, and Rick Osmond was explaining this in the video that I hope to publish today. It is expand in 11 dimensions. So, and for instance, when we talk about the galactic plane, the dimensions are so big that we can actually talk about a galactic plane. But when we talk about the ecliptic of the solar system, it doesn't exist. There is no ecliptic, because the sun is here and the planets are being tugged behind it like in a spring that keeps having rings bigger and bigger and bigger behind the
Right.
sun as it pushes us crossing the arm of the galaxy, while the arm of the galaxy is swirling itself, while the galaxy is moving itself towards a supercluster of galaxies that are in their turn turning around a quasar. So
Right. Massive
everything is,
corkscrew.
yeah, it's all inconceivable to our capacity of understanding how all of it works, and yet we are basing
The
all
three
our
body
measure.
problem.
Sorry.
The three body problem applies to each and every one of these things, and we don't see that effect. Because at our scale, we could see the effect of the three body problem, making it very hard to predict where these different bodies would be in relationship to each other under those different stresses. So each one of these things is exerting gravitational stress on one another, and it doesn't make sense why they would still be in these precise orbits at this massive, transference of energy. It's
How is that our mathematics, our physics, it all based on these systems that actually are not at all as they are depicted? If there is no ecliptic, because there isn't, how are our calculations based on the movements focused on an ecliptic?
right.
Do you see where I'm going? So how are mathematics working if they don't represent what is physically existing? So are our bases wrong, or is just a system that by approximation works because the scales are so big that it doesn't really matter? I'm not quite sure what is the answer to that question. But the fact is, at least in astrophysics, in astronomical calculations, there isn't an ecliptic. The planets are not going around the sun in a 2D plane. They are spread behind it. So there is no line where all the planets are going around, for instance. And many of the calculations we have today, including uh, satellite orbits and all of that, is calculated on that base. And it isn't real. That's not how things really are. So either the scales are so big that things work for approximation, or the physics that we use to explain our reality are just an illusion. They're not real. They just work according to the language, the same way that I'm speaking English because I'm following the rules of the language so that you understand me. It doesn't mean anything to someone that doesn't understand them. It's just sounds separated by silences.
Yeah. See, that's the problem. Do we really have any kind of a grasp on the universe? And I think electric universe theory tries to put forward something coherent when it comes to that stuff, and how it's all electrical pulses and it's not really gravity. So if you're thinking about electrical pulses, that would include things like the orbits of electrons around a, positive charge. And if you look at that model, like the atomic model, then you kind of see how that works with our solar system. We've got these different densities that occur at these different distances that have a specific charge. So they're saying maybe it's actually a charge and not a gravity particle, whatever that is. So there are other explanations that kind of give us a little bit more of a hint, but still the mathematics doesn't really hold up if you're thinking about just the powers that are being enacted on each other. But who knows?
Sure, but if matter, for instance, let's calculate the huge black hole at the center of our galaxy, right? It's sucking in material, and there are two main theories regarding this. One is that the material that is going into the black hole reaches a point that is called the singularity, and so time extends eternally. It never reaches the black hole. It just remains there because of the accelerations. It remains there eternally. And another theory says that material is transformed into energy, is conducted through the black hole, and comes out on a white hole on the other side as energy, and later recombines itself into matter and develops another part of the universe, be it with stars producing planets, moons, and so on and so forth. So matter is being transformed and recreated constantly through these black holes that are like the recycling of the universe itself that guarantees its forever existence, right? The problem is, if you go a level further, what is outside of that universe? Because the universe has to be contained within something. Otherwise, something can exist in nothing. Right? I know it's highly philosophical questions, but I think instead of looking for a God, we should looking what is the source? Where is this contained?
Right.
Right?
By any measurement, the problem you would have with the universe model we have now is, what if you could zoom out from outside the universe to an infinite scale? Well, then there's actually nothing between you and the universe, because there would be no space there to exist. So in essence, we would have to be infinitely small at the same time as being infinitely large, which doesn't actually work. So there has to be some sort of dimensional layer between us and whatever nothing is. You know?
It's like a hologram. Even the smallest part of the hologram has the information of the whole. You can reproduce the whole of the smallest part of the hologram. You can create the whole image with just that tiny part. Is this the universe the same thing? Everything is contained in a singularity at the same time as it is the whole. So, and is there really a separation between things just because we have this physical and observational perspective of things, when things seems to be separated? Is it, energetically speaking, all connected? There is no division. What is force fields that allow us to feel that kind of division when it actually doesn't exist. It's all energy at the same time. So it's weird.
Yeah. Well, we've been at it for about 2 hours now.
Yeah.
So I think we should call it. It's been a great episode, everybody. Thanks for joining us, and come back again for another one next time.
Sure.
Late.
Peace.